What's going on, Ma? Welcome, you guys. It's Tuesday here at the watch party. Good to see you. What's up, chat? I think I'm too old to call the chat, but I'm gonna do it anyway. What's up, chat? Shouted you guys out last night. I'm not sure how many of you guys do the every program on the network, but I was over on Turks and Jerks last night. Shout out the chat, the vibrant, very cordial group that we got here in the chat. I even said that we drink every once in a while, maybe even have a toke or two. Who knows? I mean, I don't really dig into y'all's lives. You do what you want. It's still kind of like a free country. But I did point out how dope everyone is in here, and maybe there's a couple new folks that only watched Turks and Jerks last night for that last half hour or so that I was in. And you guys are here too. So any of the new folks, sorry, I'm moving batteries around that are old that I don't need anymore. Here, let's throw them on the floor. Um, so anyone new here that maybe was on Turks and Jerks and checked us out last night, please welcome me. Again, like I said, the chat is nice. They're cool peoples. Everyone's all on board. So there's lots happening. I'm not sure if you guys noticed that titling there. Um, Sometimes I get a little tired of direct normal ice stories or the stories about the economy. I mean, we know what's happening. I think it's very important that I keep staying on those things, so don't worry. But also there's a little something new that came across my eyes today, and you probably saw it in the titling there, and it involves our friend Byron Donalds. My mother specifically, she always has many things to say about Byron Donalds. Tim Scott, who also talked about, I believe, yesterday, Byron Donalds is taking the cake. It's not even him that's doing it, but he's definitely the target. I usually save my favorite story maybe for the middle of the hour, but I have to start with it here, just because it's like I said, it's my favorite one, and I have to talk. Byron Donalds is a victim of his own circumstances, a victim of his own normalization of the rabid racism that happens within the MAGA party. And now that he's running for governor of Florida, dude is, he's seeing what it is that he's put forward. He doesn't really care, but it is pretty indicative of the party that he's all about. There's a man named James Fishback. He's opposing Byron Donalds there in Florida, and he has a very specific campaign against him.
I got a lot of flack for saying that Byron Donalds was a slave, but I'm not going to apologize for it. If he wants me to stop calling him a slave, he can give the money back to AIPAC.
He's got the music behind him. It's so cool. He's so based. James Fishback is not going to apologize for calling Byron Donalds a slave. You know why? Because he's a slave, according to, James Fishback. Let me let him explain a little further, because that's where he starts, but it's nowhere near where he finishes. He's on this podcast here, and he's explaining further because, as he pointed out in the beginning of that little promo there of his, he's not going to apologize. He got some pushback for calling Byron Donalds a slave. Let him explain why.
Let's just be completely honest of what Byron Donalds is. Byron Donalds is a tether. He is not an American descendant.
Wait a minute, James. How do you know the term tether?
He is a tether. He is not an American descendant of slaves. So when Byron Donalds cries, like he has over the last couple of weeks, because I call him a slave to AIPAC, a slave to corporate interest, a slave to the pro-immigration lobby that has hurt every race of Americans, but has also hurt Black Americans who disproportionately work in food, hospitality, leisure, and customer service. He is in no position, has no right to be complaining about me calling him a slave when he has absolutely no direct descendant of slavery in his family. He's from Panama. He's from Belize. His dad's from Jamaica. Irrelevant. The precondition of affordability, Consuelo, is having a job. If you do not have a job, literally everything in your life is going to be unaffordable. And if you don't have a job because Byron Donalds is a slave to corporate interests and big super PACs that want to bring in cheap foreign labor, not because they love these people, not because because they will work at half the rate and do double the work. And that is a system that enables the great replacement of all American workers.
So as you can see, James Fishback there, he's punching the term. And in fact, he's makes sure he uses it as many times as possible, no matter how many times folks ask him. So why do you keep doing that, bro? Do you think this is going to help you? It's pretty obvious. He's MAGA. Of course he thinks it's going to help him. It's worked for every other MAGA candidate to gain some support by othering, that dumb minority Black guy who's apparently a slave. But as you can see, he's couching it similarly the way that Donald Trump and the rest of these fascists do. They couched it in these terms as if they're some kind of populist. So he's a slave because of AIPAC. It's a good perspective because AIPAC pays a lot of people and then gets them to do anything that they want. This crosses, partisan lines. They do that with many politicians. We've seen it. So he's fighting for the normal guy, but at the same time, what he's doing is talking about how then black folks are being replaced by these dirty, filthy immigrants. And apparently Byron Donalds is a slave to that system and just doesn't know any better because, we know Byron Donalds is super established. We know he's one of the guys who's getting promoted and endorsed by Donald Trump. So now the standard for the party is what Donald Trump says and does. So this guy, James Fishback, is trying to toe that line of still being very MAGA and Donald Trump, but also claiming that Byron Donalds, who's endorsed by Donald Trump, is this slave to the establishment. But I just want to really reiterate because maybe because James Fishback keeps reiterating it. What he wants you to pay attention to is his leanings towards talking about this guy racially.
You said that Byron Donalds is a slave to some of these corporate interests. Could you not have made the same point without using such a derogatory term for a black lawmaker?
Well, look, I think what's derogatory is the fact that Byron Donalds has taken $30 million of corporate money, the vast majority of it, from out of our state to fund his campaign. It's no wonder why he's in the pocket of property developers who want to pave over every little inch of our state for the next strip mall or weed dispensary or liquor store. It's no wonder he supports the H-1B program. I've yet to meet a Floridian, whether it's here in Hillsborough or in Pinellas or my home county of Broward, who's pulled me aside, Holly, and said, would you please support the H-1B program? We want more foreigners to work in our state. That is a position that is forced upon him by his large corporate donors. My message to Byron Donalds is very simple. Give back the $30 million in corporate money. We don't even know really where it came from. We know it's out of state. Give it back so you can actually stand up for American workers. That's the right thing to do.
Give the money back, you slave. I mean, I assume everyone knows who Byron Donalds is, and if you don't, I'm going to get to that soon. But I even forgot a big aspect of that second clip there that I ran of him talking in that podcast, and he talks about how Byron Donalds is also his reasoning behind why it makes sense for him to call Byron Donalds a slave and not maybe any other American black person is because he's not a direct descendant of American slaves, and even went on about calling him a tether. To which that host was very happy about. Tether, how do you know about that, man? Tether. So just so we know, he's really driving that point home. He's a slave, he's a tether, and he has no reason to be upset about this. I haven't heard much from Byron Donalds about it, but we heard a lot from James Fishback. Listen, these are all the instances, and there's probably more. It's just all that I could find. Here's what he posted. This is the day after Christmas. Byron Donalds is a slave, and he capitalizes slave again, who was auctioned off for $31 million. He only wants to please his corporate masters. I'm running for governor to make Florida more affordable and working for students and seniors. He's quoting his Politico article that talks about $31.5 million that Donalds has raised in that Florida race. So obviously it's about the fundraising and probably corporate fundraising, of course. But you see the terms, you see what he highlighted: slave, auctioned, and corporate masters. Just in case you guys really weren't getting the point, it went even further. You know what else Byron Donalds is doing, according to James Fishback, who's very upset about this guy? He retweeted something from Brianna Morello, who said this tweet automatically disqualifies Donalds from any leadership position. And it's apparently Byron Donalds saying, to all celebrating, I wish you a happy Kwanzaa. Apparently that was supposed to be on the 26th as well. And Fishback responded and said, so true, Brianna, so true. Well, I'm not in the business of defending Byron Donalds' dumbass, but from what I could see, unless he deleted it, that was never a post from Byron Donalds. Why would Byron Donalds wish anyone a happy Kwanzaa? Byron Donalds doesn't like American black folks. He uses his positioning in MAGA to try and be the one black friend of Donald Trump to get any kind of positioning that he needs. And James Fishback, maybe he didn't look into whether or not Byron Donalds actually did that. Like I said, best case scenario for Fishback is Byron Donalds posted it and then deleted it. I didn't see it on his page. Just saying. I'm just saying. But you know what? It doesn't even matter. Fishback was not done with old Byron. He says Byron Donalds represents a dark vision. That's in capitals, the dark vision for Florida. One where we surrender our land to AI data centers given to overdevelopment and allow Florida Works to be replaced by Indian H-1Bs. As governor, I'll protect our land, workers, and seniors. This is where the issues run into people like James Fishback. I mean, he has plenty of others, trust. But him and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who were all about detaching themselves from certain MAGA people. Marjorie Taylor Greene's opponent is Mike Johnson, and Fishback's opponent, obviously in this race, is Byron Donalds, who's very MAGA too. So how do you separate yourself from a guy who's super MAGA and has the eyes and ears of Donald Trump, and you're looking for that positioning without pissing off Donald Trump? Well, you avoid that Donald Trump is also in favor of bringing in other workers to take certain positions that many MAGA folks were very upset about, talking about how it wasn't America first. So in order to toe that line, he has to say that only Byron Donalds wants H-1B visa workers coming in and stealing and replacing American workers, when really he could criticize Donald Trump for that too. But why would he do that? He's looking for a positioning, and he's trying to get himself that is ahead of Byron Donalds. But again, it's a dark vision. I feel like his excuse when he's talking about how he's not a direct descendant of American slaves, how that doesn't have anything to do with him talking about dark visions and more terms that are pointing out darkness. Hey, here's another one. The future of Florida is dark if Byron Donalds wins. We will all be, he put in like, he highlighted this with stars. We'll all be enslaved to H-1Bs, private equity and property developers. We don't want to live in chains. Wow. It's I think you guys are getting the point. I think you're getting the point of what James Fishback is driving. The problem with all this is Byron Donalds has any issue with it. It's because, he was all on board for, demeaning Black Americans for his own political positioning. Here's the last thing that I'm going to show you from James Fishback. He did this little random promo video for himself standing outside of a Walmart. This was something else.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have found Byron Donalds in his natural habitat outside of a Walmart in Tallahassee. He is there. He was with one chicken earlier. He's now moved on to another chicken, as is always his case with these things. And he does not appear to have stolen from the store yet, but third time would be a charm. Stock market's closed, so he has not made a stock trade. But we were, wow, ran into Byron Donalds. That's kind of cool. In Tallahassee, where he went to school. And cool to be here.
So he's outside of a Walmart. And apparently Byron Donalds hasn't stolen anything from the store yet, because, that Black guy, he's going to show up at a discount store like Walmart and he's going to steal shit because he's a tether. I don't know. I've been losing track. All I know is that what's dripping is the racism, and that's what's appealing in this party. I wonder if enough people who are following along realize that the party that you're following, the party that you're all about, that is, if you're MAGA, is all about this type of stuff. And I'm not saying it. James Fishback is saying it. And the reason James Fishback is saying it is because everyone else in MAGA says it, and then they prosper from it. There's this guy who looks a lot like Byron Donalds, and it was during the campaign when if he's upset about this, he probably has only himself to blame for the new normalcy that they've got going there. Do you guys remember this?
You see, during Jim Crow, the Black family was together.
That's right.
During Jim Crow, more Black people were not just conservative, because Black people always have been conservative minded, but more Black people voted conservatively. And then HEW, Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are. What's happened to them?
I mean, he's okay with the Jim Crow era because the Black family was together and doing great. During the Jim Crow era, when people were fighting for rights in this country, the folks that he said, had their great nucleus of a family together while they weren't being attacked, people weren't being murdered, and the law in the country wasn't backing up those murders. It wasn't happening. It's just Byron Donalds wants you to know that, Black Americans in the 50s, that everything was great for them. And now everything is crumbled. It's like it's like he contributed and helped facilitate people like James Fishback to come and attack his ass. And this is even more fun. You know, they're talking about his direct descendancy and whether or not he's truly an American black person, right? Because he's a tether. I remember that's what James Fishback said, that he's a tether. There's another moment when Byron Donalds had the opportunity to defend a person who has black folks, who has African American in their background and or also Indian in their background, and she was running for president. It's weird because
Doesn't matter. Why do you all keep questioning her identity? She's always identified as a black woman. She is biracial. She has a Jamaican father and an Indian mother. She's always identified as both. Why are you questioning that?
Well, George, first of all, this is something that's actually a conversation throughout social media right now. There were a lot of people who are trying to figure this out. But again, that's a side issue, not the main issue. The main issue.
Sir, one second. You just did it. You just did it again.
Of the United States.
Why do you
George,
insist on questioning her racial identity?
You want me to talk?
I want you to answer my question.
George, now that you're done yelling at me, let me answer.
So questioning somebody's racial identity for a couple minutes is okay?
George, I'm going to tell you again, he brought it up. AP is the one that wrote the headline when she first came in to the United States Senate. Didn't talk about her being black, talked about her being the first Indian American senator. AP brought that up. I mean, George, we could have this conversation for the entire segment, but none of this matters to the American people.
If it doesn't matter, I don't understand why you keep on repeating it, why the president keeps on repeating it, why those introducing the president yesterday
George,
keep on
actually,
repeating
I'm
it.
not the one who keeps repeating it. George, you're the one that's bringing it up now. That's
You've done it,
I understand why
sir.
you've
Done it.
up.
You've done it
Because
3 times. Every single answer
George,
you gave me. Now let me finish, sir.
George,
Every single answer you gave, you repeated the slur.
You asked me, George. That's why I'm pushing back on you now. George, you
Right,
asked
and-
me the question 3 times. I responded, but I'm
And every
about
single
what
time you
truly
repeat
matters
the
in this
slur.
country.
That is exactly my point. You simply can't say that it's wrong.
George,
AP did not say that Kamala Harris is not black. She is biracial. She is Indian. She is black. You continue to repeat the fact that you continue to repeat the slur. I don't understand why you and the president do it, but it's clear you're not going to say that it's wrong. And you've now established that for our audience.
he even established it for James Fishback. So what comes with that type of stuff is the hatred and the stereotypes and even the blatant and direct lies that force people to think these subhumans of black folks, no matter where their ancestry comes from, is disgusting. And so maybe there's a certain percentage of Floridians who see Byron Donalds the same way that probably Donald Trump sees Byron Donalds. There's my black guy over there. So since they see him that way, and he's always been a part of allowing them to see him that way, I don't know if he can really complain about this whole thing. But one last part, since Fishback talked about Byron's background being a Jamaican, he said Belize. I can't remember the third thing that he pointed out. But there were these Haitian folks that were being attacked by the same president that Byron Donalds loves and he's using for any kind of political upward mobility that he's looking for in the Republican Party. This was really funny though. During that time with the cats and dogs thing in Ohio, Good Liars spoke to him about that. This was just funny to me.
Donald Trump said that people are eating cats and dogs in Ohio.
why are you changing the subject?
Because I want to.
Right
No,
now.
I just want to
Focus on the
know.
issues at
I would
hand.
love to know if you think he's
She-
losing touch with reality a little bit.
No, absolutely not. Second of all,
Because you saw it on TV.
the reality is she dodged every major policy question.
No, but
to
you're
have.
dodging this question.
What matters more to the American people?
I'm asking you,
Inflation or
people are
what you're
eating
talking
dogs
about?
and cats
All
in Ohio.
You're not. Listen, I actually do care about what is happening to our country.
Same.
Do you want to answer? Or you want me to answer?
You can go first.
Okay. I actually care about what's happening to this country.
Same.
All right. Next question.
It was like a script, bro. It was perfect. That's how you handle people like Byron Donalds. Let him get frustrated in thinking that he's telling you how it is, and he's got a direct pulse to the American people. So last thing, I promise I'm almost done. This is just really funny to me. So there was a response And I kept telling you guys I wasn't sure what Donald's response was because he's not going to waste his time, considering he's probably the front runner. I haven't looked into the numbers, but I feel like Byron Donalds is probably head and shoulders the front runner, and this guy James Fishback is probably polling at 0 to 1%. And this is his push to get some kind of momentum going. Because again, like I said, you get momentum going with blatant racism in this party. So let's see what Byron Donalds' response to this whole thing is. Actually, this is what Fishback even posted in saying Byron Donalds' response to all of his racism is.
I'm not going to respond to ignorance. That's my response. My campaign's going very well. We've been in about 50 counties in Florida. We've been very successful in terms of reaching voters. Obviously having the support of President Trump, Senator Rick Scott, most of the congressional delegation, our polling numbers, we're leading very big in the polls, and our fundraising apparatus is going quite well. And so, the only response I really do have is that, in politics, when you're in the lead, people try to do anything they can to try to take shots at you. But I'm not going to respond to ignorance. If it's something about policies that are impacting the people of Florida, if it's about the future of our state, we'll talk about that. But ignorant stuff, cheap shots, I have no response for it. I'm not going to respond to it.
It's odd, though. The guy who follows behind Donald Trump has no response to insults, cheap shots from people, even though the guy that he worships is all about insults, cheap shots, corruption, hate, racism, bigotry, misogyny, xenophobia, anything, all of it. But Byron Donalds likes that guy because it helps him. We'll see how much Byron Donalds likes Donald Trump when Donald Trump is no longer around. Maybe they'll have him as their deity from now on, and use his hatred as their path going forward. Hey, James Fishback really might have a future in this party. He and Byron Donalds are going to be like the ticket in 2032. Whatever. All right, that's that guy. That was fun for me. Let's move on to this next story. If you guys just showed up, you missed my favorite story of the day, but it's going to be back up on the channel later because it's my favorite story of the day. Byron Donalds is catching the racism that he helped foment and facilitate within the MAGA party. So that's where those things happen. And I'm sure he's not bugged by it. He's comfortable with racism. That's what he kept peddling. Whatever. Fine. I just want you guys to know. Let's move on to this next story. But again, before I do, let's do this together because I forget every day, bro. Let's like this stream. There it is. I just liked it. And you guys maybe do that same thing. Also, when these stories come up, like those, share those as well. If you haven't subscribed yet, you just got here and you're new. The chat is warm. It's hot. It's beautiful in there. Go ahead and hang out with them. We'll have some more fun. We do this every day at noon, in case you just now found out. Let's move on to this next story. This really, this crossed my eyes at the last minute, and I went on like a tear to get all this information surrounding Tom Homan. I said before, bro, we got to stop letting Tom Homan off the hook. The guy was brought up with some bad news about that $50,000 bribe that he allegedly took, but is also allegedly on camera, and allegedly Pam Bondi doesn't want you to see any of it. That's their plan. But still, there's some developments, though. It got even worse. Because even though we're finding out about that $50,000 bribe, which we heard about back in September, what we're finding out more is that Donald Trump apparently didn't know.
Details how the Trump transition team did not learn until days before the inauguration that his pick for White House border czar, Tom Homan, was under investigation by the FBI for allegedly accepting $50,000 in bribe money. Because Trump delayed submitting names of intended appointees for FBI background checks, the disclosure came late to Trump's team, and career DOJ and FBI officials doubted whether Homan could obtain a security clearance.
And what normally would happen in any presidential administration that's about to walk into the White House is there would be a series of names submitted for FBI background checks so that the president-elect will have the benefit of the FBI's review to know, is there an ethical complication? Is there a financial conflict? Is there something embarrassing if I name this person to a top and senior post? And worst of all, is it possible that whatever is going on in this person's background would disqualify them from getting a security clearance and having the trust of the president?
That's what normal president-elects may do because they're looking to avoid embarrassing things, corrupt things, things that can derail the person that they put in place and take off their agenda. The problem with this guy is that he's all about, corruption. Who cares about embarrassment? The guy embarrasses himself every day. Who cares about corruption? That's what he bathes in. So it's obvious that he really didn't care about that background check for Tom Homan, where he maybe would have found out about this $50,000 bribe that they're still trying to cover up and hide, though, But let me give you some details of exactly how this FBI got to finding out about investigating Tom Homan. Because originally, like I said, back in September, we talked about how he was investigated, and they were saying how this is some kind of setup for him. I didn't even know it was this bad.
4 sources familiar with the investigation and a government document reviewed by MSNBC say Homan was not entrapped by undercover FBI agents, as Levitt suggested, but rather that those agents were repeatedly steered to Homan by one of his own associates. Julian Jace Calderas, a former U.S. immigration official who worked under Homan in the Obama administration, allegedly proposed to the agents who were posing as businessmen that Homan could help them win lucrative federal contracts if Donald Trump became president again, in exchange for $1 million. Calderas first allegedly proposed the scheme in May 2023 and continued to do so for more than a year until that September 2024 meeting in Dallas, where agents allegedly recorded Homan accepting $50,000 in cash. Instead of immediately moving to file charges, those agents waited to see what would happen after Homan joined the Trump administration as the nation's top immigration official. But when Donald Trump won, his DOJ shut the whole investigation down.
I believe that last part we knew about. But what I didn't know was when the setup came, when he came there to get his $50,000 of cash with the money bag symbol, with the money symbol on the side of the bag, this was all set up before by another agent that worked with him previously during the Obama administration. Yeah, I don't know how many of you guys know this. Tom Homan has been in this game for a minute under other administrations. And in this particular administration, he's set free to be as completely rabidly racist as possible. Also, don't forget, this is one of the criticisms of the Obama administration as well. They were setting records for deportations. It wasn't as focused and everything on the news as people talking about, but there was plenty of libs that were concerned about how this was being done. And it wasn't even under the guise of saying, like the worst of the worst. So anyway, those are the differences. But just the flashback to Tom Homan actually working in previous administrations, he wasn't the one who was set up, as they're saying. He met there after the coordinated effort was done by another agent, and he was just showing up for his $50,000 because he's about to get a position where he can then do some more corrupt, dirty shit with Donald Trump. Like this was his opportunity. Also, during this whole breakdown, it was also his opportunity to lie about whether or not he was really a part about this. Listen again, this has always stood out to me. This is when Laura Ingraham asked him at the time about that bribe.
Address this article that came out over the weekend, and it was on our always reliable MSNBC, and they said that you took $50,000 in cash in a bag from an undercover FBI agent to help them win government contracts in Trump's second term. The DOJ said they concluded there was no criminal wrongdoing, but nevertheless, that story is out there, and I imagine you want to respond to that.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I did nothing criminal. I did nothing illegal. And there's hit piece after hit piece after hit piece. And I'm glad the FBI and DOJ came out and said, said that nothing illegal happened and nothing, no criminal activity. You're talking about a guy who spent 34 years enforcing the law. I mean, I left a very successful business that I ran to come back and work for a government again. I'm back on a government paycheck. Not only did I sacrifice my family sacrifices, I make sacrifices every day. I got more death threats than anybody. I got a security team around me, but guess what? My kids don't. My wife don't. I mean, I haven't lived with my wife in months because I don't want her to be here right now with all the threats. So after all the sacrifices, after serving my nation for all these years, they want to come on and dirty me up. And it's not going to end. There's a hit piece on me every 2 weeks. But keep coming, because you know what? Tom Homan isn't going anywhere. Tom Homan isn't shutting up. And Tom Homan's going to keep doing what he's doing.
Okay. I need Tom Homan to shut up, because what Tom Homan didn't want to do was detail the reasons why this is such, a setup for him. Like, so since people are saying this was a setup, because people were saying that as well, how is it that it was a setup if you did nothing wrong? You were never there, never took 50. We know the lies never really make any sense, but he is happy that the DOJ and the FBI concluded in their own way that the guy that they put in place under Donald Trump, who says he can do anything he wants, and if you cross him, that you're outside of MAGA, that once they said that he didn't do anything wrong, it's just over and done with. We're going to dust our hands of this situation. It's why I always want to remind you guys, this is the same FBI and Department of Justice, the same one's been covering up these Epstein files, the same ones that said Donald Trump was nowhere in it before we found out that he's in it, the same ones that have said all these lies about what we're seeing and hearing, the same Cash Patel Patches who was talking about how there was no other culprits in the Epstein scandals except for Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. That is before we found out he was lying there too. It's full of corrupt criminals in this administration. Why would you believe anything that they say? Of course they're going to say, I had nothing to do with this. I didn't take $50,000. We're just not going to show you any of the evidence that we've suppressed and destroyed in the meantime. Let me show you why I'm even questioning what it is that they're reporting from the beginning, that Donald Trump had no idea. No idea. At least they said the Trump administration transition team, them specifically, and I assume Donald Trump would have some part of that, has had no idea about this because there was no background check. They're going to explain further how and why there was no background check.
So do you know why Tom Homan wasn't put forward? Was it just timing? He was chosen late and they didn't have time to get him put forward, or was something else going on?
What is so surprising is because Donald Trump initially balked right after the election at the idea of submitting names for background checks. He didn't trust the FBI to vet his people. And because he delayed in doing that, he lost the benefit of the FBI's knowledge. So literally, as he is about to walk towards inauguration, and as they're doing staging in Washington for his swearing in, his Trump transition officials are finally named. DOJ and FBI career officials are literally chomping at the bit to tell someone in Trump's team, hey, you have a problem with Tom Homan. We have recordings of him taking $50,000 in cash. But the Trump team never learned it until this one day in a DOJ meeting room, which we describe in our story. Emile Beauvais, now a confirmed judge, was the late arriving Trump transition person for DOJ, and the DOJ career people hand him a one-page typed summary explaining what Homan has done. And he reads it and just shakes his head and grimaces.
I don't know. So Donald Trump cares that Tom Homan was taking $50,000 now that he found out late. But the only reason he didn't get that background check is because Donald Trump didn't trust the FBI. I feel like he didn't trust the FBI because he figured the FBI would probably investigate all the criminals and corrupt people that he's putting in place. I feel like whether or not Donald Trump knew specifically what it is that Tom Homan was up to, I feel like he didn't care if he was doing some corrupt dealings behind the scenes, because again, this entire network was to take money from the American people as they've hoarded and stolen from us, and then and then passed out to some oligarchs and passed out to this ICE and Border Patrol agencies and agents to fund all of this illegal, criminal, violent activity that they keep doing. Why would he give a damn if Tom Homan was doing some quid pro quo meetings about taking some money in so they can funnel some of these folks who Stephen Miller and the rest of these guys have talked about their minimum quotas of 3,000 people a day to get to these places in order to make some money for people like Tom Homan? Why would Donald Trump care or be concerned about that? If they find out, you would think they would do something about it if they cared. Instead, what they did after they found out was they dispatched, that same liar that's trying to cover up the Epstein files, that's lied multiple times about what she's covering up in the Epstein files, Pam Bondi here, to go and berate people and deny anyone's access to that alleged tape that people in the FBI said they have.
You were asked by my colleague from Vermont whether you will support providing a video or audio tape, if it exists, of Mr. Homan taking $50,000 in bribe money from the FBI. Will you support a request by this committee to provide that tape or tapes to the committee? Yes or no?
Senator Schiff, you can talk to Director Patel about that.
Well, I'm talking to you about it. You're the Attorney General. This will be your decision. Will you
You don't have
support?
to tell me what is my decision,
Well,
what is not my decision. I said
and
you
you
can
don't
talk
have
to
to.
Director
You don't
Patel.
have to try to.
You think you've
don't
got a
have to-
gotcha with Tom Homan, our
Excuse me,
border czar,
excuse me, you
who's
don't-
been out there
Excuse me.
fighting for our country
Madam
since
Chair,
Donald Trump took office.
I'm trying to ask you a question. Regular order, please. And you don't have to defer to the FBI director to pass the buck. So I'm asking you, will you support a request so that the committee, or indeed, I believe the American people should be able to see that video or audio tape? Will you support that request?
Will you apologize to Donald Trump
So
for
I
trying
guess,
to
I guess
impeach
the
him
answer is you won't support that
after
request.
you now know that
So
Joe
let me-
Biden tried to cover up
do
Hunter
this.
Biden's involvement with
Excuse
Ukraine?
me. Let me do this, because I think it's valuable that the American people get a sense of what you've refused to answer today.
That was the day that Pam Bondi had little scribble notes on each senator that she could go after, or representative that she could go after at the time, so that she won't answer any of the questions. Did you notice? She's not committed to revealing that tape. What she's committed to is doing the same thing Tom Homan did, making themselves the victim. What I need you to do is stop attacking Tom Homan. And Tom Homan says, what I need you to do is stop attacking me, because I got a wife and kids, man. I get threats all the time. Nobody gives a damn about your threats, because every day these folks are out here threatening others. So let me shift a little bit. And it's still within Tom Homan's story here. So this guy who took the 50, this is why it's a big deal. This guy who allegedly took the $50,000 bribe on tape that the Pam Bondi has no interest in showing, to prove everyone wrong. Same with the boat strikes that Hegseth's talking about, to prove everybody wrong. They won't release this stuff because they wanted to continue down this same route. And what Tom Homan is doing is exactly what it is that they wanted him to do. It's not worth it to get rid of the guy who's a great, perfect foot soldier for fascism and bigotry, and then replace him with someone else. Like, what if that person doesn't have the stomach for it? Remember, Tom Homan let Fox News and everyone else know what he has the stomach for, and it's for, racism and racial profiling in their process.
The people need to understand, ICE officers and Border Patrol, they don't need probable cause to walk up to somebody, briefly detain them, and question them. They just need this totality of the circumstances, right? They just got through the observation, get articulable facts based on the location, the occupation, their physical appearance, their actions. Like a uniformed border police walks up to them at for instance, a Home Depot. And they got all these articulable facts, plus the person walks away or runs away. Agents are trained. What they need to detain somebody temporarily and question them. It's not probable cause, it's reasonable suspicion. We're trained on that. Every agent, every 6 months get Fourth Amendment training over and over again. These officers are really good at what they do. And if the judge make a decision that's against what these officers are trained, what the law is based upon, then they're going to shut down operation. I think that's your end game. They want ICE to stop doing this. But if they base it on the rule of law, they're going to find out Border Patrol and ICE is doing exactly what they're going to do in accordance with law.
They're going to racial profile people. That's the objective of this same guy who didn't have a background check because Donald Trump didn't trust the FBI, who apparently took that $50,000 bribe, and now he's carrying out the message. He's carrying out the agenda, the mass deportation agenda of this administration. That's why they like this guy. That's what they're all about. So this is how it advances. So again, $50,000 to try and get in good or give it to certain folks. The pay for play schemes here. But did you know it got this bad? The trafficking of people is what this administration has always been about. They want you to forget about the corruption and somehow maybe miss the fact that they're trafficking people for money.
The Trump administration is reportedly exploring as it seeks to ramp up its sweeping deportation policy. According to new documents reviewed by the Washington Post, that includes a new plan to hold 80,000 immigrants in warehouses. The Post cited an apparent ICE document as describing this as setting a feeder system where newly arrested detainees would be booked into processing sites before being funneled into one of the 7 large-scale warehouses that hold up to 10,000 people each. Detainees would then be staged for deportation. According to the Post, a DHS spokeswoman said that she cannot confirm the reporting and she declined to answer questions about that reported plan.
Apparently, the most transparent administration in history that they keep telling us they are continues to not answer questions about all of these issues. Specifically now, this issue of them trying to transport up to 80,000 prisoners. No, not immigrants or migrants. No, prisoners who could be American citizens, folks who did nothing wrong, but just the people that they've kidnapped off the streets, and then they go and send them from processing sites to then warehouses, where I guess some more of our money is being spent to build huge warehouses where they'll continue to cage people up like animals. You know how that whole thing works, the way they like to do those types of things. But this is where it gets even worse. I'm just going to give you the full rundown here as what's being reported now. Of the 80,000 that are going to be going to these sites, they're taking another 75 and sending them to another country. I mean, an American-controlled country. But here's what was posted: the tiny nation of Palau, where 2 seasons of Survivor were actually filmed, has agreed to take 75 migrants for $7.5 million. They've not been charged with crimes and will be put to work filling some labor shortages. That's weird. So this Trump administration is kidnapping enough people that they're going to take 75 of them, which they admit have not been charged with crimes, and they're going to send them to an island nation of like 18,000, I think is what I read they have, so that they can then work in exchange for $7.5 million. You know what that sounds like? It's you know what, here, before we go ahead and tie that knot of clear enslavement, here's more details. So this island of Palau is located in the Western Pacific Ocean, and they inked this deal with the Trump administration in exchange for that $75 million in foreign aid after 5 months of negotiations. They've been trying to do this half of this year. Migrants who have never been charged with a crime will be allowed to live and work in the 180 square mile country, which is home to fewer than 18,000 people. The U.S. Embassy in Koror, the capital, confirmed those details on social media after they had a ceremony and they had this agreement about it. And what a Christmas miracle that it is. Hey, here's an image of that. Here's an image of that ceremony, where I guess the officials there in Palau, along with the embassy that they've got there, had this long post about all these agreements. Let me read you this one small paragraph at the back end that really details the way they tried to pose this slave trade. The United States and Palau also signed a memorandum of understanding regarding the transfer of third country nationals with no known criminal histories who will have various employment opportunities to help meet Palau's need for workers in a variety of occupations. The U.S. deeply appreciates Palau's cooperation in enforcing U.S. immigration laws, which remains a top priority for the Trump administration. In this regard, the U.S. granted $7.5 million to address the needs of relevant Palau public services. So do you think they're sending these 75 folks over to that island to then, live? You're like, oh yeah, we don't want you here, but we'll send you there to live freely? Or do you think they're prisoners and then they've been put to work to help with this infrastructure building? They mentioned a lot of things that they need help with, to help with the building of things. Do you think they're getting paid for that work? Do you think these folks that they've admitted in multiple ways that they're not criminals, that they're sending over to some island, that they paid to take them in at $100,000 a piece? That's what it comes down to. $100,000 per person. The United States is paying this controlled island to take in their slaves. It's a weird thing. It's almost like they're white supremacists. No, I saw someone mentioned Palau is not a U.S. territory. No, but they still rely on the United States economically, funding wise. They broke free in the mid 90s, I believe, is what I read. No, I didn't know a lot about this island either. So I tried to look into more about it. So whatever I'm missing about them, apologies. But I do know one thing about them: they're taking in slaves, and for some reason, we're not going to look at it the way it is. We're not going to see what they see as taking America back, making America great again, is enslaving people that that they believe are lesser citizens for not doing anything. It's weird. It's like it's in their blood or something. Okay. And by the way, last thing, our money's going to that. So we're paying for the enslavement of people on this island. It's only $7.5 million. Just a drop in the bucket. So just chalk up a couple more reasons. Next time someone asks you, why do you have Trump derangement syndrome? Why do you hate Donald Trump? Because Donald Trump and his entire administration and all these lackeys around him, they're fascists, they're enslavers. They like to, transport human beings. It's like what he was doing with Jeffrey Epstein and those kids. Okay, move on to this last, you guys. Let's move on to this last. So there was developments happening with Russia, Ukraine negotiations. Again, it's one of those stories that feel like it continues to repeat the same thing over and over and over again, except there's new twists here. Because as I think you guys saw on Monday, Donald Trump met with Volodymyr Zelensky at Mar-a-Lago, I think it was, definitely not the White House. And they said they were 95% agree on so many things. The only few sticking points were like, the possibilities for a ceasefire coming. And, we'll address that in a minute. But something suddenly disrupted the whole thing after Donald Trump and Zelensky were both saying, I think we're getting close to something, at least from their side. They hadn't talked to Putin and what he thinks of it yet. So in response to that, there was reports of something going down at Vladimir Putin's house.
Up and have a beautiful lunch, and we'll see you later.
The alleged strike on Putin's residence could scuttle the peace.
Yeah, I don't like it. It's not good. I heard about it this morning. You know who told me about it? President Putin told me about it. Early in the morning, he said he was attacked. That's no good. It's no good. Don't forget, the Tomahawks. I stopped the Tomahawks. I didn't want that because we're talking about, it's a delicate period of time. This is not the right time. It's one thing to be offensive because they were offensive. It's another thing to attack his house. It's not the right time to do any of that and can't do it. And I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very angry about it. Please.
You hear that? Donald Trump heard about the attack on Vladimir Putin's residence, and he's very angry. He's very upset about it. And who he heard it from was Vladimir Putin. So of course, it like happened. But did you notice really fast? He brought up how, because he's believing that story, that he's bragging that he didn't send those Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine because look at how crazy they are with invading and going after Vladimir Putin's residence. It's almost like he thinks any aggression that may come from Ukraine, that it's completely unjustified. But at the same time, anything that Vladimir Putin does never happened. He never even wanted to point out that Russia invaded the country at all. There was a really good follow-up question. I'm glad that she asked it because she asked him again. So who'd you hear this from? And why don't you believe American intelligence?
I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very angry about it. Please. What? Well, it came out. Well, we'll find out. I mean, you're saying maybe the attack didn't take place. It's possible too, I guess. But President Putin told me this morning it did. One question, Mr. President. I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very angry about it.
So she asked him, well, don't you have U.S. intelligence services that monitor this situation that can tell you whether or not this actually happened? And no lie, it's like the first time it crossed his brain. He's like, I mean, well, you're telling me that it's possible that Vladimir Putin is potentially lying to me about aggression coming from the country that we continue to try and have this negotiation for peace towards. And then whenever we're saying we're getting close to that, then suddenly some aggression happens because Vladimir Putin said some kind of aggression happens. And now I'm pissed off about it because how dare they break this up again? It's always someone else's fault. And again, he was baffled that she would actually think that he would maybe rely on, American intelligence services for these types of declarations instead of listening to Vladimir Putin. The bad news, or maybe what she already knew, was that Donald Trump always believes Vladimir Putin. He said the same thing way back in 2018. Remember in Helsinki when he bowed his head and kissed Vladimir Putin's ass cheeks?
Just now, President Putin denied having anything to do with the election interference in 2016. Every U.S. intelligence agency has concluded that Russia did. My first question for you, sir, is who do you believe?
My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be. So I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today.
Strong and powerful. Two things that Donald Trump definitely likes in Vladimir Putin. Every time he's strong and powerful, Donald Trump loves him some strong and powerful declarations from, dictatorial types, the ones that he always, looks up to and wishes that he was about, which actually leads me to this. Again, at this whole summit on Monday, or at least this meeting that he had with Zelensky, he couldn't help but to keep relating to Vladimir Putin. It's almost like he works for him or something.
You, in the past, have suggested a trilateral meeting between both Presidents Putin and Zelensky. Is
Right.
that something that is also on the docket?
I see that happening, sure, at the right time. I saw a very interesting President Putin today. I mean, he wants to see it happen. He wants to see it. He told me very strongly. I believe him. Don't forget, we went through the Russia hoax together. And he'd call me, I'd call him, I'd say, can you believe the stuff that they're making up? And it turned out we were right. They made it all up. And despite that, we didn't get into wars and we didn't get into problems, but we weren't able to trade very much or any of that, which was a shame because, a lot of success could have been had by trading with Russia. They have great land, great minerals and other things, and we have things that they want very badly. But the Russia hoax, which was a terrible made-up fictional thing by Crooked Hillary and by Adam Shifty Schiff and bad people, sick people. They made it up. It was all a made-up hoax.
It wasn't a hoax, and it wasn't what she was asking him about. But he did want to point out how he and Vladimir Putin went through this Russia hoax together. They went through it together. They held hands. They discussed. They talked about how unfair it is. These two dictatorial mindsets. They both were just chilling, and they were so afraid of the things that could potentially happen to them. So, apparently Vladimir Putin has gained Donald Trump's trust. So anytime that he says anything, very strongly and powerfully, by the way, with Donald Trump's head in between his armpit when he's wrangling his dumbass, he believes it because he's strong and he's powerful. He believes it so much he's willing to say stupid shit like this. You guys did hear this, but I want to review.
So in your conversation with President Putin, did you discuss what responsibility Russia will have for any kind of reconstruction of Ukraine post an agreement?
I did. They're going to be helping. Russia's going to be helping. Russia wants to see Ukraine succeed. Once it sounds a little strange, but I was explaining to the president, President Putin was very generous in his feeling toward Ukraine succeeding, including supplying energy, electricity, and other things at very low prices. So a lot of good things came out of that call today, but they were in the works for 2 weeks with.
So in your conversation with President,
The best thing is to watch Volodymyr Zelensky's face the entire time this guy goes through it. There's a quick clip. Someone did zoom in on his face just about the Russia wants the best for you, wants Ukraine to succeed. I'll show you that. But at the back end also, even when he's talking and continuing on, there was something like, oh my God, what's wrong with this guy? He's like, are you guys hearing this bullshit too? Just really fast. I thought it was funny. So the Russia wants the best for Ukraine line. Here's Zelensky's reaction silently.
Russia wants to see Ukraine succeed. Once it sounds a little strange, but I was explaining to the president, President Putin.
He's like, are you kidding me? Well, actually, yeah, that is bullshit. Yeah, it does sound strange. You're right. Very, very strange how that works. It's weird that suddenly you can think the people who invaded this country and then continue to want more and then continue to break any ceasefire agreements and then come up with a new scheme to say that more attacks happened right when they say they're getting close to another ceasefire deal. All those things. It's weird that he keeps thinking that these groups of folks actually want success. What does success in Ukraine look like to Vladimir Putin? Just ask yourself that question, because Donald Trump never did. Zelensky did go on Fox News to maybe say what was in his brain during that Zoom in.
Where he said this: Russia's going to be helping. Russia wants to see Ukraine succeed. There was a pan over to your reaction, and you kind of had your eyebrows went up and you smiled a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't agree with that?
No, it's not about agree. I don't trust Russians, and they don't want. I mean, this. I don't trust Putin, and he doesn't want success for Ukraine. Really, he doesn't want. He can say it. I believe that he can say such words to President Trump. I believe in it, that he can say it, but it's not truth, really. He doesn't want to have from President Trump more pressure with sanctions and etc. And he can say that I want success for Ukraine and I'm ready to give them cheap electricity. Really, between us, we don't need cheap. I mean, this energy because we paid so great. I mean, this price, our lives. It's not about energy. We don't need anything from them. That's why I think it's messages for President Trump. Yes, to find a way how to communicate with him.
Yeah, the question was about helping with reconstruction after the war, and that Russia wants to help. And
they have to give us money.
Yeah,
they can give us money for this, and we will rebuild everything what we need to rebuild, and we will decide what to do.
I don't think Bret Baier has any eyebrows. I don't think he has any eyebrows. That was odd. I was like, what's wrong? Oh no, he has got eyebrows. It's just the same color as his face. Anyways, a side note. Sorry, I got distracted there. Obviously, Zelensky doesn't trust Vladimir Putin. Why would he do that? Only Donald Trump does that. And I'm going to show you explicit details as the reason why. And again, someone pointed this out. It was on one of the, cable newses. They were talking about this whole thing on Monday and how it went down and how Donald Trump keeps consulting. He doesn't have any thoughts of his own. So just to nail down this point, this is what Donald Trump posted. Like, this is not a leak. This is not someone saying I was in the room and I saw and heard the phone call. Donald Trump posted. This is before Monday's meeting with Zelensky. He said, I had a good and very productive telephone call with Putin of Russia prior to my meeting today with Zelensky. The meeting will take place, and he talked about where it's going to be. Thank you. Attention to this matter. The whole point here is that Donald Trump refers back to his guy. He refers back to the strong and powerful guy who he believes everything over U.S. intelligence, over his own eyes and ears, and over what we've seen throughout history, the recent history of Vladimir Putin, specifically with this invasion. So he checked in with Vladimir Putin before that meeting with Zelensky, and I guess he was given his marching orders as what is he supposed to say and do in front of Zelensky. This is what I didn't know until this morning. I'm sorry, it was later last night. He met with him or had a phone call with him before, but here CBS News talks about what happened after.
On a very busy day for the president, he just wrapped up a phone call with President Putin of Russia. The White House says that call was a positive one. The call comes after Mr. Trump met face-to-face with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky yesterday.
The president of this country had phone calls with Vladimir Putin before the meeting with Zelensky, had the meeting with Zelensky, said they got all far in all these places, then had phone calls with Vladimir Putin after to check back in to refer back to what is it was actually said that he's not going to reveal to the public or the media, so that Putin, his control arms, can tell him then what to do next or make more demands. I feel like if there was like any other president, specifically it was like a Democratic president, and that was getting snatched around by his nose by Vladimir Putin like this, they would be like, this is crazy. I can't believe you're getting yanked around. What does Vladimir Putin have on you? What is it that you're doing that makes you sell out this country consistently for however many decades this guy has been apparently on the payroll for Vladimir Putin? It's pretty obvious. I feel like we're looking at obvious things in our faces and we're not paying attention to it. So last thing, I'm almost out of time. Do you guys remember that whole summit? There was the Alaska summit between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, a one-on-one meeting behind closed doors. They rolled out the red carpet, put Vladimir Putin in the armored car next to Donald Trump. They drove off. They had their meeting. Everyone rolled in. And when they walked out, do you remember the reports? Even Fox News was doing it. But I'm going to show you what MSNBC's reporter said. Up in Alaska, after they walked out, this is the scene, or what they saw on the faces of damn near everyone in Donald Trump's administration.
What struck me, Jen, in particular, was really just the looks on the faces of a lot of the American delegation here. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, Steve Witkoff, who came into the room, then left quickly, then came back in. Leavitt appeared to be a bit stressed out, anxious. Their eyes were wide, almost ashen at times. Those were some of the sort of images that will stick with me as we leave here. This was not the way the president likes to do things. He likes to be the producer of this presidency. He got that in the first half of the day, but when he was behind closed doors with Vladimir Putin, it looks like he didn't come away with anything that he claimed he wanted. He said he'd go home unhappy if there was no ceasefire. They didn't declare one here today.
Eyes wide open, ashen, startled. Something they said to them in there said, don't forget, we got you by the sack. Talk about grabbing them by the genitalia. They were afraid something went down, and it continues on to right now. And even after I forgot, even after that Alaska summit, they were supposed to be talking about a ceasefire. Bro, it's almost the new year, and they're still talking about this ceasefire. And every time they talk about this ceasefire, something happens that's in favor of Russia to continue this aggression. And now it's Donald Trump believing that there was this attack on Vladimir Putin's house. Have you ever seen Donald Trump care about attack on anyone else's house? Americans' houses? No, doesn't give a damn. He cares about the guy who runs him. Maybe one day we'll find out what it is that they have on him. Maybe after he's gone. Anyways, see you guys. I appreciate you being here. If you took off before this last minute was up, damn, all you missed is is John's intro music, but it is a John solo show. Tell him I say hey. Tell him that you're only a couple minutes behind, and it's really easy to catch up. I appreciate you. I hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday. Quick programming note that I'm gonna tell you guys each day. Thursday, New Year's Day, we will not be doing a live stream, but as usual, like we did on Christmas, things will be up on the page as well. But we've got Wednesday going on tomorrow. We'll skip back, and then we'll have a brand new in the year show on Friday. It'll be fun times. Hopefully there's something else that'll be going on, considering all these politicians have taken vacation and aren't coming back around. We'll talk about that soon. But we'll see you guys later. Have a great day. We'll see you later, Mom.